6 marriages, 2 executions, a desperate obsession with producing a male heir. The popular understanding of King Henry VIII rarely extends past the drama of his royal court. Focusing on the royal bedroom obscures the actual mechanics of Tudor history. The heiress' true significance lies in the structural shift of the English state, not its romantic scandals. To understand what actually happened during Henry's reign, we have to view it through the lens of institutional economics and structural political history. We have to look at how property rights and power networks operated on the ground. Seen from this perspective, 16th century England was a rigid medieval order that suddenly shattered under immense, unseen pressure. The English state rested on 2 ancient pillars: feudal land tenure, locking the economy into stagnation, and patriarchal succession, concentrating authority in male hands. Henry's campaign for a male heir acted as an earthquake. Bending rules to his needs, he inadvertently destroyed both pillars. Henry VIII did not set out to modernize his country, yet his accidental destruction of the medieval institutional order cleared the way for the emergence of modern capitalism and female statecraft. The 1535 dissolution of the monasteries triggered a massive reallocation of domestic real estate and capital, fundamentally shifting the nation's economic foundation. The second shock arrived with the succession crises following Henry's death, an unstable period that forced political actors to weaponize decentralized regional households to secure power. Both of these events functioned as institutional workarounds. They were emergency maneuvers designed to bypass ancient laws that were suddenly inconvenient for the ruling class. Modernization in Tudor England did not emerge from deliberate central planning. It emerged because individuals exploited the sudden loopholes created by a collapsing system. By 1535, the Catholic Church was the largest landlord in the country. Monasteries, cathedrals, and parish churches owned roughly 1/3 of all land in England and Wales. To understand the economic status of this land, we have to look back to the aftermath of the Black Death. The massive population collapse gave peasant laborers immense bargaining power, forcing landlords to grant them a type of lease called copyhold of inheritance. This locked rents in perpetuity. Unable to claim returns, landlords stopped investing capital. Simultaneously, farmers couldn't liquidate investments, trapping labor. Compare this to shorter market leases. Without the copyhold lock, landlords invest in productivity, and labor freely moves where it's most useful. Recent economic data reveals a critical discrepancy in how these leases were distributed. Because the church maintained stronger bargaining power after the plague, the incidence of perpetual copyhold on monastic lands was 70% lower than on lands held by secular lords. Behind their stone walls, monasteries were sitting on a massive, untapped reservoir of unencumbered, highly efficient market land. In 1535, Henry VIII expropriated the monasteries. Desperate for cash to fund the state and military, the crown initiated a rapid fire sale of these assets. Because this land largely lacked the friction of perpetual copyholds, it hit the open market ready for immediate capitalist exploitation. This sell-off birthed the rise of the gentry, a new class of commercialized farmers who purchased this flexible, unencumbered real estate. Free from feudal restrictions, the gentry could enter into economically rational tenancy agreements. They poured massive capital into their properties, enclosed common lands, and drove an immediate spike in agricultural output. Former monastic parishes correlate tightly with agricultural titans and high crop yields. This advantage persisted because perpetual copyholds were nearly impossible to dissolve. Freed from medieval rent structures, monastic parcels continuously attracted the capital and labor that fed directly into 1838 textile mills. Henry expropriated the church to solve a short-term cash deficit. By liquidating the 1/3 of the nation's real estate that was free from feudal constraints, he inadvertently determined the regional footprint of the Industrial Revolution. As the dissolution shocked the economic system, a parallel disruption was preparing to upend Tudor political history. It is a mistake to view Tudor England as a modern, centralized state governed entirely top-down from a throne in London. National policy may have been determined by the crown, but the country was actually governed by a fine mesh of elite households spread across the regions. These regional establishments were the true centers of patronage, wealth, and local authority. In this patriarchal system, women were legally excluded from holding major public office, serving as justices of the peace or commanding armies. However, high-born women were expected to manage elite households. While legally categorized as a domestic or private role, managing an elite household meant commanding hundreds of servants, dictating local religious instruction, and controlling immense regional patronage. Literate Tudor queens actively leveraged this structural loophole. Anne Boleyn utilized her household network to shape evangelical state theology, while Catherine Parr authored and distributed influential religious texts through her own establishment. The patriarchal state built a rigid cage for women in public law, but it left a door wide open within the private architecture of household management. The ultimate stress test for this loophole arrived in 1553 with the death of Henry's only legitimate son, Edward VI. The 1544 Act of Succession and Henry's own will mandated that the throne pass to his daughters, but paper laws meant very little without a physical enforcement mechanism. Edward VI attempted to bypass his sisters entirely, formally nominating his cousin, Jane Grey, to succeed him. Jane had the personal nomination of the king, the backing of the ruling elite, and control of the capital city. Yet her reign collapsed in exactly 9 days. She functioned as a dependent, lacking the one asset necessary to hold power in Tudor England, an independent household network capable of raising loyal clients and armed tenants. Her rival, Mary Tudor, faced no such deficit. Mary had presided over her own independent household in East Anglia since 1547. Operating as a landlord and regional magnate, Mary exploited her household authority. She converted her domestic staff and regional tenants into a heavily militarized political faction loyal directly to her. England's first successful female monarch did not secure the throne by waiting for patriarchal legal permission. She seized it by weaponizing the patronage network of an elite household. The commercialized gentry farm and the female-led elite household operated in completely different spheres of Tudor life, but they represent the exact same structural phenomenon: decentralized networks successfully bypassing rigid medieval central planning. The gentry investors did not set out to build an industrial economy, and the Tudor queens did not intend to invent modern feminism. They were adopting proactive approaches to secure their own survival, wealth, and authority. The macroeconomic modernization of England and the rise of female statecraft were twin byproducts of a decentralized system adapting to localized shocks. Which brings us back to the grand irony of King Henry VIII. Henry drove his country to the brink of collapse for highly traditional medieval goals: a male heir to secure his dynasty and a divorce to make it legitimate. In pursuing those traditional goals, his institutional workarounds accidentally broke the monopoly of the Catholic Church, birthed agricultural capitalism, and proved that a woman could command the state apparatus. It leaves us with a clarifying lesson regarding how societies actually evolve. True, lasting structural innovation rarely arrives through deliberate top-down design. It emerges when ambitious people exploit the loopholes left behind by collapsing institutions.